In last session, we have seen about regression testing and retesting. Today we will see two more type of testing, that is smoke testing and sanity testing. Now these terms, as a tester, we will hear most frequently in any organizations. Now we should know what these terminologies mean. So smoke testing and sanity testing. What is smoke testing? Smoke testing is also known as build verification testing or build acceptance testing. Now what does that mean? So let's take an example. We have some application. In that application there is new requirements, new feature which is going to be developed. So as a developer, they will go through the requirements and developer will code according to the requirement. At the same time, QA team will write the test cases around those requirements and they will wait until the developer completes the coding. So once developer completes the coding, he will create a new build which will contain the new changes, and all the new build he will provide to QA team for testing. Now as a QA, in this situation, should we immediately start with detailed testing? Answer is no. Whenever we are getting any new changes, we should not immediately start the detailed testing. We should not start immediately with our detailed test cases. What we should verify first is, we should verify whether the basic things are working correct or not in that new build. The changes which are required, are those changes just basic test cases? So basic changes are working or not? Because if those changes are not working, or let's say any other major issue is there in that build, it is not making sense to test on such unstable build. Because if the build is unstable, the testing will not make much sense on that build, because there would be an issue, right? So there will be issues which will frequently occur in the unstable build. So that will make the time waste for quality assurance team as well. It will cost too much of to and fro with developer teams because build is unstable. So for such situation, we have to do smoke testing. So smoke testing is basically build verification testing. It is performed when development team gives the build to QA for testing. And smoke testing is used to quickly identify and fix any major issues with the software before actually starting the detailed testing. The main goal of smoke testing is to determine whether the build is stable enough to proceed with further type of testings. Because if build is not stable, we should not perform any detailed testing on it. So whenever we are getting a new build, as a QA, it's our responsibility to perform smoke testing on that build, just to verify whether that build is stable or not. If it is stable build, then we can start with our detailed test execution. That's why smoke testing is also known as build verification testing. So we are verifying the build whether it can be testable or not, whether we can continue the detailed testing or that build or not. That is basically a build verification testing, or we can say build acceptance testing. So once smoke testing is passed, then only we can start the detailed testing. That's why it is also known as build acceptance testing. We are accepting the build after the smoke testing success only. So this is the flow basically. So whenever developer provides new build to QA team, as a tester we should not immediately start the detailed testing. First we should check if basic things of application are working or not by doing smoke testing. Smoke testing will include some of the basic cases around those changes. And if it is not working, that means the build is unstable and we should reject that build, because there is not sense by performing test execution on unstable build. We should always perform test execution on stable build. So when we verify whether the important features are working and there are no showstoppers in the build that is under testing. Because if there is a blocker issue or let's say stopper issues, then we could not perform the detailed testing. So we cannot perform the detailed testing on that build. That's why the smoke testing is important. So smoke testing shows that the product is ready for testing. And this helps determining if the build is flawed. To make any further testing, basically it's a waste of time and resources as well. That's why we should always do the smoke testing first before actually doing the detailed testing. So this is basically the flow. So let's say there is an initial build which is developed. So that is provided for quality assurance team for detailed testing. So as a QA, we should always perform the smoke testing first. If that fails, we should reject that build. And if it is passed, then we should start the detailed testing on it. So especially during the initial cycle of any software, most of the times the build will be unstable. So that's why smoke testing becomes important part of it. Let's take a simple example. So consider a web-based e-commerce application. In that application, some new changes are coming, new changes are developed. A new build of the application has just been deployed, and the QA team need to perform smoke testing to ensure that it is ready for further testing. So in case of that e-commerce application, what are the smoke testing scenarios we will pick? So we should pick that user is able to log in successfully with valid credentials. We should verify that whether home page is correctly loading or not. We should verify that search functionality, adding cart functionality are working or not. And also item is getting successfully checked out or not. So these are basically very basic test cases, right? So if these things are working, that means it will show that build is stable and we can perform detailed testing after that. But before the detailed testing, we should ideally test all these 4 to 5 scenarios. It will make sure that our smoke testing is successful, the build is stable, and we can start with our regular detailed testing on that new build. So this is the simple example of smoke testing. One more example, let's say we have application with installer. So developer has given a new build. So as a smoke testing, we should verify whether the installer file is correctly placed or not, whether the installer correctly installs the application or not. After installation, that application is successfully launched. Basic navigation in the application should work correctly. So it will verify that basic functionality of that installer application is working fine. And then we can start the actual detailed test execution. So these are the smoke testing for installer application. So what are the benefits or main goal of smoke testing? Early detection. So because of smoke testing, we can identify the major issues in the build very early in the development cycle. And smoke testing can be performed by developers as well. So whenever they complete the development, ideally they should always perform the smoke testing from their side as well, just to verify that whatever new changes they are working on it or they have completed, that new changes are working correctly or not. That should not break the build at that point. So those type of smoke testing even developers can do from their end before giving the build to QA. But as a QA, we should always perform the smoke testing because that will make sure that build is stable, and it will make sure that the detailed testing will continue. And it will also prevent the QA team for spending time on detailed testing when the build is unstable. Because if the build is unstable, there would be issues coming during the detailed testing. So while testing on unstable build will not make much sense. And it will build the confidence. So once you complete the smoke testing, it will provide the confidence that major functionalities and changes are working as per the requirements. And also it will improve the quality. So stable build are subjected to thorough testing, and it will lead to higher overall quality. Because if the smoke testing is successful, then testers can perform edge cases as well as more detailed testing. And if the build is unstable, then most of the time will revolve around those issues only. That's why smoke testing is important, because smoke testing gives confidence to tester as well that build is stable, and he can perform the thorough testing on that stable build. It will eventually save the effort and time of testing team as well. And smoke testing runs quickly because we don't have to do the detailed testing. We just have to verify whether the build is stable or not. So these are the some main benefits of smoke testing. Now this is about the smoke testing. Now what is sanity testing? So sanity testing is subset of regression testing. In the last session we have seen what is regression testing. So sanity testing is subset of regression testing. So sanity testing mainly focus verification of specific functionalities after some minor changes or bug fixes happens in the software. So let's say there is a one feature module in which some minor fixes are done by developer. So in that situation, developer would ask to do sanity testing to QA team. So as a tester, we should perform very basic operation on those changes just to verify that it is working end to end correctly. So that is called as a sanity testing. We should verify the specific functionality only in which changes have happened because of bug fixes, or it might be due to some code changes as well. So it ensures that the recent changes or fixes did not adversely affect the existing functionality of the application. And sanity testing is done very quickly. It is not a detailed testing, it just revolves around those changes. And it is a subset of regression testing. And main goal of sanity testing is whether the section of the application being tested is working as expected or not. And sanity testing is done on stable builds only. So this is basically flow of sanity testing. And what are the key characteristics of sanity testing are targeted testing. So in sanity testing, we focus on very specific area or specific functionality that have been modified. Sanity testing can be narrow or it can be a deep as well. Depending on the changes which are done by developer in that specific feature, we should perform the sanity testing. If the changes are more, we should perform detailed sanity testing. If changes are minor, we should perform narrow sanity testing. But we should always verify the impacted area in that sanity testing. And it is aimed to quickly verifying the reset changes are working correctly. It is faster than regression testing. We should not spend much time in sanity testing. Regression takes some time, but sanity is done very quickly. Sanity testing is unscripted. So unlike regression, so in regression testing we have seen there is an entire regression suite which is available. But for sanity testing, it is often performed without any formal test cases. So it's totally rely on experience and understanding of the changes, as well as the understanding of that specific feature. Sanity testing is normally performed by testers only, and examiners concentrate on the regions impacted by the most recent modifications, quickly evaluating the stability of the application in that sanity testing. Now let's see one example of sanity testing. Let's say there is a bug was reported in a web-based email application where on user's profile page the forgot password feature was not sending a reset link. So imagine there is one application on which there is a forgot password link, but after clicking on that forgot password link, it was not sending a reset link to user. Now this was a bug. The developer will fix that bug and developer will release a new build. Developer has fixed that bug and developer has released a new build. So as a tester, we should perform sanity testing on that. Firstly, obviously we should verify that issue is fixed or not. And along with the issue fix, we should verify some test cases, like some test cases around that feature. For example, verifying that the forgot password feature sends the reset email, that is the obvious fix which we have to test. And along with that, we should always verify reset link in the email works correctly. It is getting sent by email, but after clicking on that reset link, it should successfully reset the password so that user can update the password using that reset link. So that is basically end-to-end sanity testing. As part of the sanity testing, we should also verify login page is validated as well, because on the user profile page there is a forgot password link, and that link can also be present on user login page as well. So as a part of sanity testing, we should verify on both the pages. We should verify that because of this change, login page reset link is also working correctly, as well as user page forgot password link is also working correctly. So both the places we have to test. That is basically known as sanity testing. So these test cases should cover end-to-end functionality of that feature and the changes which are happen in that feature. So this is basically a sanity testing example. What are the advantages of sanity testing? So main advantage is it helps to quickly identify the defect in the core functionality. So whenever any changes are made, because of those changes are working or not, that we can quickly verify by doing sanity testing. Compared to regression testing, sanity testing takes lesser time and no documentation is required for sanity testing. It verifies a small functionality of the system application, whether it is still working or not, even after a small change. Sanity testing also helps in the scenarios where time for testing of the product is very limited or having the less time to complete the testing. Fast process that provides a quick feedback. So sanity testing provides quick feedback on the overall functionality of the software build, and it also allows the team to quickly identify and address any critical issues. It is less time consuming and less expensive compared to regression testing, and it is cost effective solution for evaluating new builds. Sanity testing also enable developers and testers to focus on more complex testing scenarios, improving overall productivity and reducing the time required for full regression testing. So these are main advantages of sanity testing. Now see the difference between smoke testing and sanity testing. So we have seen that smoke testing is basically acceptance testing. In smoke testing, we have to verify whether the build is stable or not for detailed testing. Whereas sanity testing is mainly done on stable build to verify any fixes or any changes which are implemented by developer, and because of that whether that functionality is end-to-end working or not. That we have to verify in sanity testing. It happens whenever any minor changes are happens in the specific feature, we have to do sanity testing. Focus of smoke testing is always on core functionalities, whereas sanity testing is very focused on specific area where actually change has happened. Only that specific area we have to do sanity testing. Smoke testing is very shallow type of testing where we execute very basic test cases to verify stability of the build, whereas sanity testing can be more deeper. So depending on the changes, sanity testing can be deeper as well. The main purpose of smoke testing is early detection of major issues, whereas sanity testing purpose is verification of specific changes. Test coverage. Smoke testing covers critical functionality of the application, which is having the broad coverage, whereas sanity testing is very targeted type of testing. It has narrow focus on specific areas. Execution time is quicker for smoke testing, and compared to smoke testing, sanity might take some extra time. Smoke testing is conducted after a build or release. So whenever developer gives a new build to QA team, we should perform the smoke testing, whereas sanity testing can be conducted during later stages of testing. Whenever any small changes, minor changes are done, we have to perform the sanity testing just to quickly verify the changes are working fine or not. When we come to the test cases, in smoke testing we have very limited set of high level test cases, whereas in sanity testing we have selective test cases related to recent changes. In smoke testing, it focuses on identifying the severe defects, whereas sanity testing focuses on detecting regressions or issues related to recent changes. For smoke testing, we need a minimal setup, whereas sanity testing might require additional setup or extensive setup based on the specific changes. Because depending where exactly the changes have happened, we need exactly same setup for those changes. But for smoke testing, it can be a minimal setup. Test result analysis. So after smoke testing, we should determine if the build is stable or not for further testing. Whereas sanity testing specifies or it verifies that specific changes are made correctly or not. Decision making. After smoke testing, it should decided that we should proceed with further testing or not. Whereas sanity testing makes the decision about whether the changes which have made in the application are acceptable or not. Frequency of execution. Smoke testing is performed whenever the developer team gives any new build for testing, whereas sanity testing can be performed for each round of testing or after specific changes. So sanity testing can happen anytime. Whenever the developer makes some changes in existing feature and they can ask to perform, QA team to quickly do the sanity testing around that feature or around those changes. So that is basically difference between smoke testing and sanity testing. So thank you for watching this video. I hope my videos are helping you all. Keep watching it. Thank you again.